How do we do that after Shavuos? I thought, no?
I don't know. There were people that are doing it tonight. I don't know. Got to be good
I'm
something,
sorry I'm
right?
late.
It's got to be good something, right?
Hello?
Hello?
Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
I don't know. All my internets are not working. Maybe that's a simon for a good summer. I don't know. Oh, now it's working. Okay, hold on. Okay, I think I'm here. I mean, you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I apologize. I hope that will be easy now. Okay, so I hope everybody's Yom Tov was nice, uneventful. Okay, so we're on Mem Vav Amud Beis. We left off with Amar Rabba, I think 2, 3, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom of Mem Vav Amud Beis. Yeah, so we're talking about geirus. That's the rest of the tonight's stuff. Geirus, avdus, which happened to have been today's laning of Kriyas HaTorah, at least Eved. Right? So Amar Rabba. Yeah, Uvda Hava be Rab Chia bar Rebbe, Rab Yosef Masti Rab Oishia bar Rebbe, Rab Safra Masti Rab Oishia bar Rab Chia. Right? That's a little matana for doing the daf. 3 lines of names in Yevamos is a nice matana for right after Pesach. Right? So the ger shemal v'lo tovel. So he came in front of him, a ger who had a bris and he didn't do mikvah. Amrli, she canad lamachav v'natfalino. Stay here till tomorrow, and then we'll be tovel you. Why? Because Rashi says it was nighttime, so they wanted to wait till the day. So Shema minot las from the story. we hear three things. Again, a guy came in front of him, a ger came in front of him at night, and he told him, come back tomorrow. So Shmamino Tlas, we learn out three things. Shmamino ger tzarich shloisha. He says you have to come in front of a bezdin, so therefore it means that you need to have three people. Shmamino eino ger at sheyimel v'yitfel. He's not a ger until he needs mila and tefillah. Shmamino ein matfilim ger b'layla. And you don't do a tefillah of a ger at night because they told him to come back tomorrow. Otherwise, why couldn't the Jews just do it then? And the reason is, Taisva says, because it says mishpat by ger. So it says mishpat by ger. Therefore, you don't do judgment at night. Even though this judgment has nothing to do with judgment, but since it says the word mishpat, so mamela, we don't do it. We don't do it at night. Right? So then the Gemara asks, why do you say you also need mumchim? Because these three were big rabbis that he went in front of. So maybe he says, come back, we'll do for you tomorrow. That means why couldn't he just get three stam people from a bezdin? Why do you need to have it's mashma that you need to have three big rabbis? So it says no, maybe that's what happened. It just happened to be three rabbis were there, but doesn't mean that you necessarily need three rabbis. Fine. The ger requires three people. Why? Because it says mishpat, and the judgment needs three. So let's say somebody comes into shul and he says, I'm a ger. So you think that we should be makabel him? It says itcha, which means with you. But it has to have a chazaka, meaning you have to know that he has to have some sort of proof. Right? You can't a guy just walks into shul and says, it's interesting, because what happens if a guy walks in, why doesn't he have a migu? The Mefarshim asks, why doesn't he have a migu? He could have walked in and said, I'm Jewish. Right? Why don't we believe him that he could have just said Jewish and nobody would ask him anything? A guy walks into shul and you give him an ali, you ask him for his yichus, you ask him for his papers on his yichus? No. A guy comes in, he says he's a ger, then you ask him. So it doesn't have a migu, right? A good old migu, which is if he wanted to lie, he could have lied a lot better and had it much easier. So maybe he shouldn't need proof. So that's what we're saying. The chiddush is that no, he does need proof. Fine. What happens if he comes and he has witnesses?
Excuse me.
So how do you know you take them? When he's with you. Right? So therefore, he's with Adam, so he's with you. Sorry, in your land. So now what does Ba'artzchem say? Now we're on to today's daf. Yeah. This only the pasuk says Ba'artzchem, and only in your land that you makabel a ger. How do you know in chutz la'aretz you makabel him? It says you with you, meaning with Yidden, where any place that Yidden are, not only in Eretz Yisrael, but anywhere. So if that's the case, if Itcha is telling you everywhere, so what's the word Aretz telling you? Ba'aretz tzarich lavi raya. In Eretz Yisrael, you need to bring a proof, right? And b'chutz la'aretz ain't tzarich lavi raya. So in Eretz Yisrael, you need to bring proof. In chutz la'aretz, you don't need to bring proof. Do Rabbi Yehuda. Whether you're in chutz la'aretz or in Eretz Yisrael, you have to bring proof. Now, why would you need to bring proof in Eretz Yisrael any more than in chutz la'aretz? Without getting into the whole geirus issue in Eretz Yisrael, although this whole Gemara is mashma, like this is like you see in Eretz Yisrael, they have this whole geirus issue. In America, it's not an issue, right? How to accept Geirim, who has the right to accept Geirim, etc., etc. This is like a precursor to that. So the reason is because Eretz Yisrael is a great place to live. So we're afraid that in Eretz Yisrael, Geirim might lie. But in chutz la'aretz, why would they want to be a Yid in chutz la'aretz? Right? In Eretz Yisrael, there's a good reason to become a Yid. So that's why he would think that in Eretz Yisrael, that's why the Chachamim hold, the Rabbi Yehuda holds, you need to have proof in Eretz Yisrael. Then Bahu Ve'edav Imai Karalamali. If he comes with Adam that he's a ger, what do you need a pasuk to tell that to you? Right? We know that it isn't anything in klal. So
you can't hear anyone.
Adam, that's it. So Rav Sheshes to Amri, Shomanu Sheniskar Bezna Shaploini. They didn't actually see his gerus. They heard that he was in Bezdin Pliny was Geirim. So you would think that we shouldn't believe them, right? Because they didn't see the gerus. It's like aid me pa. They're saying, we know the rumor that we could testify that they're saying that in this bezdin, so maybe you shouldn't take them. Kamash Malon, the pasuk's telling you that you do take them. Right? One of the biggest issues with Geirim and one of Masadi Kedushin, or even children of Geirim, is tracking down the yichus of the geirus and who did the geirus and was it a legitimate geirus, was it not a legitimate geirus? There was just a story now, we just had it, where the kala, there was a shaila on the kala's mother's geirus. Some rabbis had an issue with it, and other rabbis didn't. So they decided, you know what? Why should this girl have problems when her kids Bez Hashem are in shidduchim? When she went to the mikveh before the chasana, they got another bezdin together to do that. She should do a tefillah. The kala should do a tefillah for the geirus. Like this, there's no issues. Like this, there's no issues. Even if the mother's geirus was an issue, they decided to do it for the daughter, who was, I don't know, in her 20s, just to make sure that should make sure nobody give him any problems.
I have a friend that had that the other way. It was his mother's geirus.
Then the Gemara says, "Vayter in the pasuk be'eretz, ein li ela be'eretz, b'chutz la'aretz minayin." That only tells you in Eretz Yisrael, but b'chutz la'aretz, how do you know that you can take these edim? It says, "Be you in any place that you." So when I ask v'hafikta, right? But you use that pasuk to tell you that he needs to bring proof. I mean, you're using the word itcha twice. So chadam itcha v'chadam may imach. One is from you and one is from you. They're both different, two different words in the pasuk. Whether you're in Eretz Yisrael, whether you're in Chutz La'aretz, you need to bring a proof. But according to Chachamim, it says in the pasuk ba'aretz. So in ba'aretz you need to bring proof. Chutz La'aretz, it's mashma, you don't have to bring proof. So when it answers, that's telling you that the chiddush of the pasuk is telling you even in Eretz Yisrael with makabel geirim. Because Eretz Yisrael is so good, so that's why they become geirim. And even though now there's no tivusa, because unfortunately the fruits of Eretz Yisrael do not look like the fruits the way they used to. But it still has leket, shikha, payah, meiser, all these, how would you call these things? It has a, what do you call it, system?
Benefit.
What do we call a welfare system in Eretz Yisrael?
Benefits.
Eretz Yisrael is a built-in welfare system, right? Where a guy could become a ger, and then he could get leket, he could get shikha. These are all things of fields that farmers have to give up. What? What are you saying, Gersh? You can't hear me? I can't hear you. Correct. Too bad. Okay.
No, none of us. You can't hear any of us.
I don't know what you're saying, but anyways, so there's a system in Eretz Yisrael in place for somebody to become a ger. So therefore, so you would think that he has what do you call it? He doesn't have the right motives to become a ger. Kamash Milan, that we can accept the ger in Eretz Yisrael too. So Amar Rav Chiya bar Rabba Amar Rav Yochanan Halacha bein Eretz Chutz La'aretz Tzarich Lahavi Raya. Whether it's in Eretz Yisrael, whether it's Chutz La'aretz, you have to bring a raya that his geirus is proper. I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I hear you very low.
I hear you, Tziyako, just fine.
Maybe that's
we
a good
hear
thing.
him, but can you hear us? You hear me?
Oh, now I
Yes.
got you. Now I got you. Okay, now I can hear. Okay. Okay. So everybody say what they wanted to say.
So you see, I wanted to, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I wanted to ask you, what about after the Muhammad? Let's say somebody says he's a kohen. Nobody knows him. Nebuch, there's nobody left from him who knew him.
I don't know. We don't usually ask people for proof for a kohen, right? The guy walks around the shul and it says, anybody a kohen, anybody a Levi? And the guy says, I'm a kohen. And a Hanami. Right? I don't know. Isn't there a joke about that? No?
How do we do see the kedushin? See the kedushin. How do we know if the guy's Jewish?
That's why we don't do see the kedushin. We leave it to the big rabbis, Sev.
The big rabbis, the Rosh Yeshivas, they never ask anybody.
Sure they do. Your uncle's ganz busy with this before a lot of his
Yeah, why doesn't he ask me? Why doesn't he ask me, if my wife is yichus? I'm saying, how does he know?
And economy, you can't know back geirus, but if they get, usually they know who the father is.
Is that doesn't have to be some kind. We're talking about We're talking about ishus here. We're not talking about stam.
Right, and we're talking about yichus. We're talking about yichus of klal Yisrael.
So why don't they ask for 2 generations back or something?
It's they do sometimes. Sometimes they do.
When they're choishes that there's about shuva or this or that, maybe they
Yeah.
can't. But
Because
stam
otherwise they don't have, because most people have a chazaka. Most people have a chazaka. You have a
I don't know.
chazaka.
I went to a chassan of a girl that was Balas Tshuva. Their parents weren't from the CRC, went back 2 generations, 3 generations. They wanted to see a ksuba. They didn't see a ksuba. They saw a picture. They were busy with this.
Yeah, they are, yes. For people that don't seem to have a chazaka, you're busy with it. And a chanami. They have to be. But otherwise, other than that, somebody has a chazaka. Yes.
What's chazaka? What's chazaka?
I'm saying that he looks like a from a yid, so that's it.
He looks.
And his parents are from.
Living for, when you married my daughter, so it was my daughter, there was me and my parents.
Right.
And my wife's parents. So there's 3 generations.
I'm not worried about you. Don't worry. I wasn't worried.
He's answering the question. There's 3 geirus living a Shabbos.
Right. So that's it. That's enough. That's enough. Oh, by my wife, there was no 3 geirus tag. There was barely even 1 door above my. I'm sorry to say it. Right. So I don't know. You're right. I didn't ask for no yichus, but it just seems like if somebody, that's the whole kasha really. What's sure, because the guy has a lemaisa, the guy has a migu. It's a starter kasha.
Hello, we're gonna walk into.
But the foot.
In another few lines, they're gonna say, if I walk into a bezin and I say I'm a guy, they believe me.
Well, yeah. So it depends for what. That's what we're gonna get to. Yes, we're gonna get to that.
Okay, so good. So we're not checking nothing. I walk in Zembald, who's a Jew, my grandfather Jew, the whole life. I walk in, I say to Bez, I'm a guy, then I'm finished. That's it. My kids don't have what?
Okay, and we'll have to see. What does the footnote in our scroll say, David?
Says that the guy he was an oved kochavim, and then he walks in and he says that now I converted. But most people, they're not oved kochavim. I'm saying most people that we're talking about in this conversation are not known to be oved kochavim. Right. So there's a chazaka that they're Jewish. But if somebody walked in who you saw in McDonald's last week, who you didn't think was Jewish, and he walks into shul, so he's got to prove himself.
Yeah, you got to prove. Yeah. Anyways. Whatever. It's a shver sugi. Let's see what. Yeah. So anyways, he says halacha is that you need a proof in eretz Yisrael and chutz. The Gemara asks pshita yachid v'ram halacha geram. It's Rabbi Yehuda against the chachamim, and we're pasken like the chachamim, so that we go with the rabbim. So when eretz is mouth, the same mistaber time of the Rabbi Yehuda. You would think that the reason for Rabbi Yehuda is a good reason. Because he has a pasuk that says with you or ba'aretz or bimcha, whatever it is, kamash malan, know that you need that it goes like the chachamim, and it's anywhere. The ger has to bring a proof anywhere. So Tana Rabbanan, right? Now you have the opposite, like Zeb was just talking about. Now you have a guy who's officially a yid, and then he decides one day he's a guy, right? So Tana Rabbanan, ushvatatem tzedek bein ishu bein achiv ubein gerem, and you have to do a judgment between a man and his brother and bein gerem or his ger. So what does this mean? That you have to make a judgment in between them. Makanam Rabbi Yehuda gershon is gai bezdin harei ger. If a ger becomes a ger in bezdin, he's a ger. Bein elevein atzmai ain't a ger. But if he does it by himself, he's not a ger. Meaning he can't just come in and say, "Oh, I became a ger by myself. I went to the mikvah. I gave myself a bris. I went to the mikvah and fine." Misah be'echad shebalach near Rabbi Yehuda. It was a story where a guy that came in front of you, and then he told him, "Niskayarti beini lebein atzmi." I became a ger between my beini beini atzmi means by himself. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, yesh lecha edim. Do you have witnesses? Right. So Amar lei lav. He says no. Yesh lecha banim. Do you have kids? Amar lei hein. I have kids. Amar lei nemanat to lift salat asimcha. You're believed to pass yourself. This is very difficult to understand in the lumdus, right? You're neman on yourself that memela you're not a yid. But on your kids, you have no nemanus on your kids. So therefore, your kids are still Jewish.
We're basically splitting the lumdus.
Well, yes, this is called palginon dibure. Well, I don't know if this is exactly that case, but that's yes. And really what it is what we call shavia nafshi chaticha di isura. A person can make himself a chaticha di isura. He cannot affect others. A guy comes and says, my food is treif. I treifed up my food, right? He's not necessarily believed on other people's food, even though it came from the same place, the same butcher, same this, right? He is only believed on himself. He's not believed on his kids, right? Which then means that you have this guy running around that he's not Jewish and his kids are Jewish, right? So, okay, but then there's a whole issue with Tosis, like what's the story with the guy's wife, right? Okay, but let's see. So then Gemara asks, does Rabbi Yochanan really say that on the kids he's not believed? But Anya, Yakir, it says that you have to recognize him. Yakirenu la cherim. You have to be recognized to others.
You have Rabbi Yochanan?
What did I say?
Rabbi Yochanan.
Oh, I said Rabbi. Okay, I'm sorry. It's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, that's what you're talking about? Yeah, I mixed them up with the four. It was Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. I'm sorry. Umi Amar Rabbi Yehuda, abonim le'mehem, he's not believed on kids. But Tanya Yakir means he's recognized. Yakirenu la'cherim, he has to recognize him to meaning he has to be recognizable to others. Mikanam Rabbi Yehuda, neman adam loimer zeh b'ni bechor. This is my son who's a bechor. Right? Meaning, how do you, again, once you're starting to ask questions on people's yichus, so ask how do you know he's a kohen? Then you can say that, how do you know that this son is a bechor? Right? And just like he's believed to say his son is a bechor, he could also say, by the way, this son here, I married a divorcee or I married a chalutza, and therefore he's a chalal, and he cannot be a practicing kohen. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds that why don't we say he's not believed on his son? Meaning, because again, he's saying he did something wrong. He's saying, I did something wrong. I married a grusha, I married a chalutza. Now my kid is a chol, and we believe him according to Rabbi Yehuda. How do you believe him? You can believe him on himself that he did an avera, but why on his kids? The Chama say he's not believed. Whatever it is, it's steer on Rabbi Yehuda that you do believe him. Here it's saying that you do believe him on his kids. That is a good lumdus. He says, according to you, in our case, you're a guy. Can't be an aid, right? So he cannot be an aid. So you're saying that you're a guy. Okay, so we believe that you're a guy. So you're a guy. Now you're saying aidus on your kids, you're not believed, you're a guy. Right? According to you, you said you're a guy. Okay, so you're a guy, so be a guy. Right? But you can't be believed on your kids because you're a guy. Right? Because he's not, he can't be believed on his kids. Ravina Amar, here's a different teretz. Ravina Amar, do you have kids? So he said, hey, I have kids. Do you have grandchildren? He says, hey, I have grandchildren too. You're neman to believe your kids, you're neman to passel your kids. You're not neman to passel your grandchildren. Right? So Memela, the way it's interesting, because Taisus is the one that gives the pirush here. Like the Taisus ve'enat neman lisel b'nei b'nechem. So Taisus says that really you're believed on your kids, but you're not believed on your grandkids. But since you're not believed on your grandkids, Memela, we're going to kick it back to your kids. And you're not going to be believed on that too. That's the way he says it, right? So those are the two pshatim of why we don't believe him here. Tanya nami hachi. He's believed on his young son. He's not believed on his older son. Doesn't mean a katan mamish and a gadol mamish, right? Because then why should he be believed on the older son and not on the younger son? A katan who has kids is called a gadol. If he's a gadol who doesn't have kids, then he is considered a katan, and really it's going to depend on his kids and his grandkids. Hilchos HaKavsei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and the halachas like Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, which is who said that since he made himself into a guy, he's not believed on his kids. Oh, but Tanya Kavasei the Ravina, but we just said a brisa that goes like Ravina. You just said a brisa like Ravina, but you said halachas like Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So Gemara answers, Ahulin Yakir Itmar. That's talking about by Yakir, by the pasuk of recognizable. Right? Meaning it was just talking about that brisa was just trying to clarify exactly what the definition is of Yakir. Other than that, it's not saying that we're gonna believe the father on the children. Fine. So Torah, now we go through for a long. This is mamish the way we. This next Gemara is mamish the way we pasken, what we do, how we deal with the ger who comes to become a ger. Yes, so Torah Rabbanan, ger shabal is gayer bizman hazeh. If a ger comes to become a ger bizman hazeh, Amrim loy, we tell him, Mara Isa Shabbos, this guy, what are you saying that you wanted to become a ger? Iyata Yedea, Yisroel bizman hazeh, Davim, Tchufim, Schufim, Turafim. Don't you know that Yidden nowadays are messed up, right? We're beat up, and we're what I mean, this is interesting that we're doing this right after Pesach, but we're tortured. I don't know what all the different lashonos are, right? We're poor, we're tortured, we're pushed around. The Yisurin bayin aleim, and there's always Yisurin coming onto Yidden, right? So that's what we tell him. He says, I know, and I'm not kedai, and I'm not kedai, meaning I'm not worthy. That's what you tell you. I'm not roy to be part of the tzara, right? And Rashi says, and what would I give that I could be zaycha to be part of the Yidden? Mekabel noisa miyad. Then you mekabel him right away. Umediya noisa mitzvos kalas, and then we teach him some easy mitzvos, right? Mitzvos chamuras, and then we teach him some major mitzvos. And we let him know avoin leket shikchu peo ma'asasheni ma'asaroni, and we teach him the avera if he doesn't get involved in the welfare system. Now it's interesting that the Gemara before said that that's one of the reasons why we're choshid the guy's becoming a ger, because of the leket shikchu peo ma'asaroni. And here we're warning him that if he's going to have fields, he better make sure to give it. And we tell him the punishments of mitzvahs. Until you come to this level, meaning to this to these midas of being a yid. If you ate fats, you didn't get konish. You wouldn't get skila. If you eat chaylev, you're going to get koros. You're going to get skila. In the same way we tell him the punishment of mitzvahs, we also tell him what the reward is going to be. Right? So you tell him, we tell him that the olam haba is only for tzaddikim. And the Yidden nowadays are not able to be makabel on Talmud Beis now. They can't get too much good because there's too much Yetzer Hara. But they're not going to get too much Peronius either. So because if they do get too much Peronius, then there's going to be no more Yidden. So basically what you're telling him is that, yeah, there are punishments because we're not worthy. We don't get all the bonuses that you didn't get. But in the next world, it's all about the next world. That's what he gets told. Vein Marban love, and we don't do too much to him. Which I don't know. We don't do too much. It was pretty heavy the first few lines, but I guess they could have really laid it on him thick, but they didn't. Vein medactic in a love, and we're not so medactic with him, right? Kibble, and then if he's makabel all this, malanoy semiyad, you give him a bris right away. And if there's some tzitzin ha'ma'akvenes amila, right? We had this in Shabbos where there's a little skin that they didn't do a good job. Yeah, chayzrim u'malanoy seshniya, then we give him another bris. This and then they tell him some easy mitzvahs. Because again, Rashi, the way Rashi says it, when even though he already said he's going to keep it, but when he's going into the mikveh, he's got to do it with kavanah. When he's dunking in the mikveh, he's dunking with the kavana that he's been mekabel mitzvos. So mitzvos chamuras, and we tell him some mitzvos chamuras. Tava Allah, and then he's toivel and he comes up. Harehu ki Yisroel l'chol dvar, he became a Yisroel. That's the way a man does it. Isha nashim mashiva salsa b'mayim atzavara. The women put her up to her neck in the water. And two Tamid L'cham stand outside. Mitzvos kalos and mitzvos chamuros, and then they do the same thing. They tell her some easy mitzvahs, tell her some strict mitzvahs, and then that's what happens. Echad ger, echad even meshucher. This applies to a ger and an even meshucher. The same thing. An even meshucher, that's how he's getting himself free. But makom she nida tevelas sham ger even meshucher toivel. If the meaning the mikvah has to be just as kosher for a nida, meaning the same requirements for a mikvah for a nida is for a ger and an even meshucher. The whole davar shechaytzitz b'tefila. If there's a chatzitza for a mikvah for nida, chaytzitz beger, ube'even meshucher ubenida. It's so I'm sorry. It's v'chol davar shechaytzitz b'tefila. Anything that's chatzitz b'tefila for tuma, chaytzitz beger ube'even meshucher ubenida. It's all the same dinim. Fine. So Amar Mar, Ger Shabbat is Geirim, Amar Leimari Yisa Shabbat is Geirim, Adiunas and mitzvos kalos, mitzvos chamuras. So a Ger that's coming to Mimgar, we tell him the easy mitzvahs, we tell him some hard mitzvahs. My timer. Why do you try and not? Why do you try and convince him out of it? The parish nifresh, right? Because we don't. If he decides not to become a Ger, good. So that's great. And we're not going to care. Damar of Chelboy, Koshim Geirim. This is a really hard Gemara here. I mean, it's not a hard Gemara, it's just hard to understand. Koshim Geirim li Yisroel kisapachas. Geirim to Yisroel are difficult to get. Geirim coming into klal Yisroel are kosher, are hard. It's hard for us, like a sapachas, like some sort of tzaras. Tifsiv v'nilva hager aleim v'nischu al beis Yaakov. And the ger is going to come with them as a levaya with them. And they're going to stick to the base Yaakov, right? Which is nisfchu is the same thing as the sapachas, which is a type of tzaras, right? So actually being makabel gerim is not a good thing. There's a major uptick nowadays in gerim. You can say that. Was not doing well. I'm assuming. Yeah. We tell them all
We didn't
the.
hear you, Reb Yaakov.
We lost the last 2 minutes.
Oh, I guess I'm lost again.
We just heard you say that.
Did somebody try and hotspot me? Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Hear you just fine now.
Now.
Okay, I guess this is for the summer, right?
We're having internet issues. All right. Am I good now? Yes? Maybe not. Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
You're
You
good.
missed the whole geirus thing.
Okay, where did we leave off? What was the last thing that you heard?
You were talking about geirus nowadays, the influx of geirus. And then we missed that.
Oh, okay. So we got to the two dots. We got to the two dots, though?
Yes.
That was here?
Kosher
the pasuk says-
Yeah.
Oh, we got to the... Okay, I apologize. I don't know what's with the internet. Yeah, so anyway, so what they say is that that's when they're becoming gerim. They're becoming gerim we're chayshid that they're becoming gerim because klal Yisrael is doing well. But when they're becoming gerim for legitimate reasons, then it's okay. Right? Then it's not like a sapachas. Taisus says something interesting. Right? Taisus says that they're not bekiyin how to keep mitzvos. And then memela the Yidden learn from the Geirim not to do the mitzvahs properly. Right, which is quite interesting. So then Taisus says another pshat that they're more careful. I think this is more, I don't know, I see this more. They're more careful in mitzvahs than klal Yisrael. And then it makes klal Yisrael look worse.
Yeah, you see that with Balei
Right.
Tshuva.
Right. So they're frummer than the FFBs. So it makes the FFBs look worse.
That's Abba Novak's famous joke. How do you know when a guy's not about tshuva anymore? When he starts talking during the davening.
Oh, there you go. That's funny. I don't know if to laugh or to cry, but yeah. Fine. Okay. So then, so let's see. My timer. Also an interesting Gemara that the Ben Noach gets killed on Pachas Mishava Prutah, but Loy Nitin Leishavan, and it doesn't. You don't have to give it back. Meaning, a guy. Why is a guy? Meaning, we know that by Yidden it's got to be a Shava Prutah. Anything less than a Shava Prutah doesn't exist in Halacha. If you steal less than a Shava Prutah, you're not considered a Ganav. But by a guy, and Geirim are chayav misah for not keeping the Shava mitzvos from Noach. That's why Ben Noach gets killed even in Shava Prutah. And the reason is because they're makbid on the Shava Prutah. Yidden are not. Meaning, and they can't do tshuva by giving it back either, because they don't have the mitzvah of Beheshev as a gzela. Right? So it's not wise for Goyim to be crooks. Fine. Vein Marbin 11 and we don't add on too many mitzvahs and we're not medactic. Some of the micro. What's the pasuk? Tichtiv, Vatera. Now, of course, it's the next Yom Tov Shavuos, so we could talk about Rus. Right? Vatera ki misametzes he leleches ito v'techta l'daber eleh. Right. So when Naomi saw that Rus was a misametzes, she was stubborn. Right. So and she stopped trying to convince her to be a yid. So Amrullah, right? So Naomi said to Ruth, also on Tchum Shabbos, it's also for us to go on Tchum Shabbos. We're not allowed to travel too far on Shabbos. She said back to him, Basher Telchi Elech, where you go, I'm gonna go. Right? So meaning that was a reference to Tchum. Also on Yichud, you're not allowed to have Yichud, right, with men. So she said, Basher Talini Olin, where you're gonna sleep, I'm gonna sleep. We have 613 mitzvahs. So she said to him, Ami, your nation is my nation. Also, it's also for us to do avodah zarah. She says, your God is my God. Arba misas nimsur lebezin. There's 4 misas that Bezdin can give for doing potential averos. Basher tamusi amos. The way you're going to die is I'm going to die. Beis kvarim nimsur lebezin. There's two cemeteries that Bezdin has, right? We had this a few blocks ago. There was one for the guys that are bad, and then there's a basic chorus to the real bad guys. The Shama covers, she says, I'm going to be buried there, wherever you're buried. Miyad, Paterakim Sametzasis, and after all this back and forth, she saw that she was being stubborn and strong about it, and therefore she just listened to her and she said, okay, come along. Fine. Then kibul malanos miyad. If he's makabel on himself the mitzvahs, so they give him bris right away. My time, shuye mitzvah loy mashinon. We don't push off a mitzvah at all, right? We had this a few blot ago. You try and do a mitzvah right away, which is interesting. Why it doesn't call zrizin makdim in levitzos? Is this different than zrizin makdim in levitzos? It sounds like it's different, right? Because otherwise, why not just say it's zrizin makdim in levitzos? That's not what it's saying. It's saying shuye mitzvah loy mashinon. We don't push off a mitzvah. Fine. If the tzitzin that are ma'ak of the milah are left, so we have to take them off because it's not an eluhain tzitzin ma'ak when it's a milah. What are considered the skin, the little pieces that are ma'ak of the milah? What it is, it's skin that covers most of the crown of the aver. Right? So and if somebody has these tzitzin, he's not allowed to eat truma because somebody who's an oral is not allowed to eat truma. Rav Yirmiyah says it's basar that covers the majority of the height of the crown of the aver. Right? Meaning the difference between the first sheet and the second sheet. The first sheet it has to be all the way around. The skin has to go all the way around. According to the second sheet, it doesn't have to go all the way around. It just has to go on partially above where the skin is not supposed to be. And then the after the ger gets a refuah from the bris, then he goes to the mikvah. Nisrapa in loy, nisrapa loy, only when he gets better. So my time, because water makes cuts go bad, right? So which we know this, right? But people that have stitches can't go to mikvah because or in water, right? Because it ruins the stitches, ruins the cut. Fine. We have two we know that a ger needs 3, not 2. Yeah, so there needs 3. It doesn't. So the mission is not 2. The mission is really supposed to say 3. When he toivel and he gets up, he's like Yisroel for everything. What's the halacha? What's in the geir? Let's say he changes his mind and he becomes not frum, and then he marries a bas Yisroel. So Yisroel mumar karina be, he's considered a Yisroel mumar. Right? He's not considered a guy. He's Yisroel mumar mizmeila kiddusha of kiddushin, and his marriage is a good marriage, right? And we don't say that he's really not a yid, and the kiddushin is not a kiddushin, because we know from yesterday's daf that a kiddushin of a guy is meaningless. So we're saying no, he's a yid. Once he agreed to become a yid, he's a yid. He's looked at like a mumar. Right, so echad ger, echad evan meshuchra. So whether it's again, okay, I guess we should stop here because this is a whole new sugya about Yefas Toyer, but that'll be tomorrow's daf. All right, I'm sorry for all the internet problems over here. Okay, a guten Sommer, everybody.
Go ahead.
I hope the island doesn't work too hard. Yeah, too late for that, huh? All right. All right. I'll go pick up the now. All right. Sei gesund.